What's up, everyone? This is Mama to Wife of One, and if you are tuned into my channel, then you know that today is Thursday, and Thursdays on this channel, at least for right now, means that we are doing a recap of Married at First Sight. We are in season 12, and last night was episode 2. So, if you watched my previous video, I gave a brief explanation of what Married at First Sight is. If you don't know what it is a TV show that's on Lifetime where they bring 10 people together and they get them married and they don't meet their spouse until the day of the wedding. So last week we met the 10 individuals who were taking part in this experiment, and it's an 8-week experiment at that. We met them last week. They're in Atlanta, Georgia this season, and tonight, or rather last night, they started the weddings. Now, since they have 10 people and 5 couples, it would be a lot to have them all get married the same episode. So they only did 3 couples last night who got married. So we're going to talk about the weddings. We'll talk about a little teeny bit of fashion, and we'll talk about just how the couples react to each other. Now, in seasons past, the way a couple interacts with each other after they get married on this show, it varies. Sometimes the chemistry is immediate and they're talking and they're laughing and it feels like they've known each other forever. Sometimes it's really awkward and they're not really saying anything, or they're asking kind of stilted questions and you can tell that they're visibly very awkward. So kind of runs the gamut for last night as well. The first couple that got married were Ryan and Clara. Clara is, I believe, a flight attendant, and Ryan, not really sure what he does, but Clara is white and Ryan is black and white. And they had blindfolds on, which has never been done in the history of Married at First Sight, because he wanted them to see each other for the first time together. So they're holding hands at the altar with blindfolds on. The best man and the maid of honor take them off, and they see each other and they start smiling, and it looks all great. So what happens at the weddings is that both families normally put in something about their family member. So it was like, Clara, Ryan's family wants you to know that he is loyal and he is faithful. And Ryan, Clara's family wants you to know that she is this and she's that. It was a great way for them to kind of get to know each other before they start asking questions. So one thing I did notice last night is that every couple who got married last night, they all kissed at the altar. This is not a controversial thing, but this is something a lot of Married at First Sight viewers look for, because that doesn't always happen. Sometimes when you're right there at the altar, even though this person is now officially your husband or your wife, they're still a stranger. So some brides choose to just get kissed on the cheek, some choose to just do a hug, and then others do a full-on kiss. So last night, all 3 couples kissed at the altar, which was, again, a big deal. So after Ryan and Clara got married, they normally go away somewhere by themselves to have some champagne and get to know each other. The conversation seemed to flow very well and very naturally between the two of them. One thing I could tell is that I think Ryan is a very romantic and very sensitive person based off of the vows that he wrote. Clara is very upfront and she's very like no holds barred, and not in a mean way, but she just doesn't believe in hiding her feelings, because he asked her, and that's the other thing, they asked really great questions for it to be like the first time they're talking. He was like, what is the number one thing you were looking for when you signed up for this? And what is your biggest fear going into this? And she said, like without pause, like, my biggest fear is that I'm going to fall in love with you and you won't love me back. And he was just like, oh, wow, just kind of taken aback, because I'm sure for him, she's a breath of fresh air. It was like, what you see is what you get. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you a direct answer, and that's that. I thought the wedding was nice. Didn't really care for her dress. She complained about her dress, complained about her hair, complained about a lot. One thing that he noticed and that we all noticed is that she's extremely talkative, which is not a bad thing, really. It can get on your nerves at times. But she definitely is not afraid. She can definitely hold her own in conversation. And he met her family, she met his family, she hugged everybody. It seemed like I thought it went pretty well, and I liked the fact that immediately they were comfortable with each other. So I got a really good vibe from the two of them. The next couple to get married was Eric and Virginia. Now, Eric is a flight attendant, and he also is an airline pilot, and he's also been married before. He's the first divorced person to be on Married at First Sight. Virginia, they just keep calling her a party girl. So they have an 8-year age difference. He's 34 and she is 26. And I already kind of claimed that I don't really see them making it, because she has abandonment issues from both of her parents. I think both of her parents are divorced, but they remarried other people. But her father was still kind of in and out of her life, and I think because he didn't get along with her mother for the longest time. So because of that, she has issues of abandonment, which she readily admits to. But I don't know why you would pair someone like that with someone whose job it is to fly all the time. Because again, he's an airline pilot, but then he's also in the Air Force and he flies, and then he just flies for fun. So this man is like never home, and then when he is home, he probably just wants to chill, and she likes to party all the time. So obviously that hasn't really come out yet as being an issue because they just got married. But he thought she was beautiful. She thought that he was really attractive. He when it's time to kiss, he's like, okay, I'll give you a little one. Because I guess in his mind he assumed, okay, she's not gonna want to kiss me right away. But she grabbed his face and kissed him. There's no tongue, but she definitely showed throughout the night that she was very aggressive. And he said that he's like, oh, she's very aggressive. She's always trying to kiss me. And in her mind, well, you're my husband, so why wouldn't I kiss you? But I thought it was interesting the way. So this is the thing: we can only guess what kind of personalities people have based off of what the show is showing us. But I also know that the way the editors and the producers finagle this show, they're showing us what they want us to know, or basically kind of luring us into thinking a certain way. So with Virginia, again, she's labeled as a party girl. So I noticed that they focused on the fact that in the bridal suite, she had 2 shots with her girls and some champagne and another drink before she even went down the aisle. And then after she went down the aisle, she's like, oh my gosh, I need a drink. And they gave her some more champagne that she had with her husband. Then right after champagne, they went straight to taking pictures, and even then she had a glass of wine in her hand, and then another glass of wine at the actual wedding. So it's definitely making it seem like she's this lush, and I won't say that she is or she isn't, but the way it was shot made it seem like, oh, kind of re-emphasizing, don't forget, she's a party girl, she likes to drink. And it was funny because she told him like, oh, just to warn you, my bridesmaids, they had a few shots before we came down the aisle, so they might get drunk at the wedding. And he laughed really hard, like it was funny. And I was thinking to myself, he's laughing now, but what if this is a normal occurrence for her and her girlfriends? Like, what if this is what they do on a regular Friday night or Tuesday night or whatever? It's funny, now because he doesn't know them and doesn't know what his life is going to be like. And obviously, I'm hoping, I think they go into this and I go into this hoping that everyone is going to meet their match and it's going to be okay, and everyone will stay happily ever after married for the rest of their lives. But you never know. So I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting that he was talking about how he comes from a very traditional Southern family. Like his mom and dad looked really stone faced, and I guess because of their old school Southern traditions that don't really approve of him going about marriage this way, especially having been divorced. And so they're just kind of on the fence, but they were there to support him. But one thing I liked about Virginia, because Virginia, I'm kind of on the fence of whether or not I like her. But one thing I did like is that as soon as he said I come from the traditional Southern family, she was very quick to say, okay, I get that, but let me tell you about my family. She was like, my sister is gay. My 2 little brothers over there, they're by artificial insemination. Both of my parents are divorced, but they're remarried. And I like that she laid it all on the line and basically letting him know, I am proud of where I come from. I love my family. So we're not traditional by any sense of the word, but I just want to let you know what you're marrying into. And he was basically like, hey, you love who you love. I got no problem with any of that. But I like the way she presented it. She didn't present it like she was challenging him or like she was being defensive. She's letting him know this is the situation on this side. And I'm just letting you know that I don't have a problem with this. These are my family. So if your family got a problem with it, I don't know what we're going to do, but this is what's going on here. So I like the way she handled it. Loved her eye makeup, because I don't know if you could tell that purple's my favorite color. You probably don't know that if you're just new to this channel. I don't know how you could possibly know that purple's my favorite color. But if you didn't know, I tend to care for purple. I know I have purple like here and there around the house, whatever. But she had this beautiful purple eyeshadow, and her mom actually had these like purple clips in her hair, which I thought was pretty. Her bouquets had a lot of purple in them, so I thought that was nice. Her dress looked a little ill-fitting to me. I didn't really care for it. I thought that she was just laughing a lot at the altar, especially. I think it was from nerves, because she just seemed the most nervous and the most hesitant to really go down the aisle. And even her friends were like, I'm just so kind of shocked that you got married. And so that's not a good sign if your friends are shocked, because that means that they didn't even know you wanted to get married, which means how long have you really had this thought? But again, they seem to vibe well together, but because of her aggressive personality and her immediately bringing him closer and immediately kissing him and wanting to kiss him all the time, there were times where he indulged her. I could tell he was indulging her and kissing her back. or hugging her tighter or holding her tighter on the dance floor, but you could tell by his face that he felt really awkward because for him it's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. This is all new to me. Especially again, he's probably thinking like, yo, this is my second time go around when it comes to marriage. I'm not trying to do this a third time. I'm really hoping this lasts. I hope this works out well. She's pretty, she's beautiful, blah blah blah. But I hope she's a good person. He's probably thinking all of those things and trying to just kind of soak it all in, try to enjoy the day, take it moment by moment. And she wants to kiss him all the time, which isn't, again, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but I could tell that if she wasn't aggressive and trying to kiss him, he wouldn't have kissed her as much. He would have been content to just talk to her, to get to know her, would have held her hand, maybe would have hugged her a little bit, but they definitely wouldn't have kissed as often if she hadn't initiated it. So I'm hoping that that's not indicative of how he is in a relationship where he just kind of bends to her whim and kind of goes along with the program whether he's comfortable with it or not. But because he's older, I assume that he would speak up and say something, if he didn't feel right about it. And maybe he's just not doing that because it's the wedding and again, he's still just overwhelmed and things are being thrown at him. But I think that's something to kind of look into or to pay attention to in future episodes to see if he has that habit of just kind of going with the flow. Like, if he's home and he happens to not have a flight the next day and doesn't have to fly and she's ready to party like she always does, will he acquiesce and party with her knowing he's not a partier just to make her happy? And when you are in a relationship, you are supposed to do things that make the other person happy because why wouldn't you want them to be happy as your spouse? But your spouse is also supposed to notice, okay, he's doing this to make me happy, but it's making him miserable. Let me think of something else that we can do together that we will both enjoy. And because of her age and because she seems a little flighty, I don't see her, at least for right now, I don't see her taking him into consideration and thinking of other things they can do. She has the mindset of a person from the last season of Married at First Sight who wanted a husband to fit into the life she already had, as opposed to wanting a husband to make a new life with that person. So we'll see where they go with this. I don't have the best of hopes for this particular couple, but who knows? I could be wrong, and I hope that I am wrong. The last couple that got married last night were Brianna and Vincent. Brianna is black and she's an engineer, and Vincent is Dominican and he is a car broker, I believe. So, one thing Brianna's family kept saying at her wedding reception or wedding ceremony is that she has a good heart, she's faithful, she's loyal, she's very loving, but she's very, very bossy. And that came out a lot at the wedding, and they didn't even go through the whole wedding yet. They literally just showed them getting married, having the little champagne toast, the two of them, taking their wedding pictures, and then going to the reception and having their first dance. So that's all we've seen so far. And in those like few moments, they're walking to take pictures, and she's instructing him on how to hold her hands. And then when they're doing their first dance, she instructed him on where to put his hand while they were dancing. And he was going along with it, but I feel like he only did it because he felt I think he felt nervous. There was no awkwardness between them either. That's one thing I noticed. All three couples, as soon as they came back down the aisle and it was time to like have a conversation, just one on one, just the two of them, the conversation flowed very well. They were all very in sync. They all seemed very comfortable with each other right away, which was really refreshing to see. But for Vincent, I feel like Vincent was a little nervous for just meeting his wife for the first time. So he seemed quiet sometimes, but he didn't have a problem talking to her and like answering her questions or anything like that. But it wasn't as natural as with some of the other couples. But I feel like Brianna, and I said this from the very beginning, from them showing who she is and the fact that she got picked, I think that she has a tendency to be controlling. And I think that's something she's aware of, but may not be aware to what extent that she's controlling. And I'm hoping Vincent will be the person to tell her, okay, babe, what you're doing is a little too much. I got this. Let me take care of it. I'm hoping that she'll know when to fall back and when to kind of step up and help him if he needs the help. And I don't know if that will happen. It's hard. When you get married, it's very hard to break out of your habits that you had when you were single or when you were just dating. And even someone like me, like my husband and I dated for 10 years before we got married. And when we got married, it wasn't like I prepared myself for 10 years to kind of change certain things. there's still things that I have to reprogram myself to do. We've been married now over 7 years. So it's not something that happens overnight. So to get married overnight, you can't expect that person to immediately turn off being controlling or turn off being messy or turn off, being whatever. It's something that they have to turn into a habit. And that happens over time. And it doesn't help if you're with somebody who isn't willing to put in the work on themselves. So you realize I'm the only person putting in work. Why the heck am I doing this again? And then you stop your progress, and they don't even try, and now you're both at each other's throats. So again, not saying this will happen to the couples that were got married last night, but it was interesting. I liked seeing all the couples. I know for Brianna, I loved her dress the most. It had pockets. I'm a sucker for a pocket on a dress, as most women are. But the dress was beautiful. It had the pockets. What I liked, which I've never really seen before, in her wedding ceremony, it was very few guests, but all the guests, instead of, they were sitting in chairs, but the chairs were at tables. So that once they got up and went to cocktail hour, when they came back to the reception, they came back to the same room and just sat at the same table. So they didn't have to do a lot of, redecorating or anything like that. Everything, for most part, took place in the same room, which I thought was really cute. And they showed a snippet of another couple that's going to get married next week, Paige and Chris. They're the couple I really don't see making it, and it's mainly because of Chris. And it pissed me off because they showed him getting dressed, showed Paige getting dressed, all that stuff. Chris came down the aisle with his parents. His dad is sitting in the front row with the mom. And he's like, oh, I can't wait to see my daughter. I hope she's pretty, because if she's ugly, whew. And I want to be like, whether she's ugly or not, what that got to do with you? You ain't the one marrying her, sir. So keep your opinions to yourself. That ain't none of your business. Don't worry about what the heck Chris is doing with his stuff. Just chill and relax. So next week is definitely going to be drama, because I don't think Chris is going to be attracted to Paige at all. And she may not even be attracted to him, because he's not that attractive, quite as it's kept. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. My thing still stands on who I think is going to stay together. I think Ryan and Claire are going to be fine. Eric and Virginia, I don't necessarily see them making it as they are now. Now, once they get to the 8-week mark, who knows how much they would have changed in that time. So maybe by then it'll look a little different. But as of right now, I don't see them making it. And Brianna and Vincent, I think they'll be okay if Brianna learns to kind of pull back and not try to control everything. So those are my predictions. That's my recap of last night. I will see you all next week, next Thursday, for a recap of episode 3. All right? Peace.